The heavy steel door slammed shut with a thunderous echo. Inside the cold, dark cell, a single figure sat chained. The enemy commander smirked as he looked at her. "One American soldier won't last a week here," he told his men with cruel confidence. His fighters laughed. They believed the battle was already won, but what they didn't know was that this prisoner wasn't just any soldier. She wasn't ordinary. She was the kind of warrior legends are made of. Her name was Staff Sergeant Alexis Morgan, 29 years old, dark brown hair usually braided tight in military style, sharp green eyes that had seen more combat than most men twice her age, a medic, a fighter, and someone with a past that had shaped her into something far more dangerous than her captors could ever imagine. Alexis was born far away from the noise of cities. She grew up in the rugged mountains of North Carolina. Life there wasn't easy. The winters were unforgiving. The terrain was harsh. But for Alexis, the wilderness wasn't an enemy. It was a teacher. Her grandfather was Master Sergeant James Ghostwalker Morgan, a legend among Green Berets, a man who had survived the jungles of Vietnam, operating deep behind enemy lines for weeks at a time. He had learned to live unseen, strike without warning, and disappear like a shadow. Her grandmother, Sarah Silent Wind, was a Cherokee tracker. Her knowledge came from generations of hunters and warriors who had mastered the land long before armies and guns existed. She could read the ground like a book. One broken twig, one disturbed patch of soil, and she knew who had passed by. She could move so quietly through forests that even animals never noticed. Together, they became Alexis's mentors. Weekends for her weren't about cartoons, friends, or parties. They were training camps. Her grandfather took her deep into the Blue Ridge Mountains. There, she learned how to build shelter from nothing, how to light a fire in the rain, how to track an enemy without being seen, and most importantly, how to stay calm when the world around her was chaos. Her grandfather's words stayed with her. "Little warrior, survival isn't about having the best gear. It's about using your enemy's strength against them. It's about never quitting, even when everyone else believes you're finished." And her grandmother's wisdom added another layer. Blend with the earth. The wind can hide you. The ground can protect you. If you move with nature, no enemy will ever find you. These weren't just lessons. They were weapons. Weapons that Alexis carried deep inside her soul. When she turned 18, she chose the path that seemed inevitable. She enlisted in the United States Army. And from the very beginning, she stood out. Basic training broke many recruits. Exhaustion, hunger, pain. But Alexis thrived. While others struggled, she remained calm. While others panicked under pressure, she thought clearly. She could read situations before they even unfolded. Her instincts were razor sharp. In Ranger training, she was tested beyond limits. Sleep, deprivation, harsh conditions, impossible drills, most failed. But Alexis pushed through every obstacle. She wasn't just strong, she was unbreakable. Her skills as a combat medic made her invaluable. She could heal under fire, save lives in chaos. But what made her different was something the Army couldn't teach. The Cherokee stealth, the Green Beret mindset, the ability to fight like a ghost. That's how she earned her call sign, Reaper. Because when she was on the battlefield, the enemy vanished like shadows in the night. And yet, even the strongest warriors can be caught. Her mission in Afghanistan was supposed to be routine, a simple recon, medical support for a special forces unit. Nothing out of the ordinary, but the enemy was waiting. Commander Rashid Hassan, a man who had studied American tactics for years, had prepared an ambush. His men turned a quiet valley into a death trap. Gunfire erupted. Explosions shook the mountains. Soldiers fought desperately to survive. In the chaos, Alexis was separated from her team. Dust, smoke, shattered rocks, and then silence. When the dust cleared, Hassan's fighters surrounded her. She was outnumbered, cut off, captured. Hassan looked at her like a trophy, a woman, a medic, alone. He believed she would break easily. He believed she would be nothing more than propaganda. But Hassan had no idea what kind of soldier he had just locked inside his compound. Because Alexis Morgan wasn't prey. She was a predator. And soon, the hunters would become the hunted. The compound where Alexis was held wasn't just any prison. It was carved into the side of a mountain, hidden, fortified, a maze of tunnels, steel doors, and stone walls designed to break even the toughest soldiers. Commander Rashid Hassan had spent years perfecting this place. It wasn't just a base, it was a machine for breaking people. Isolation cells, soundproof interrogation rooms, medical chambers where prisoners were kept alive, only so their suffering could be stretched for weeks. Hassan had captured Americans before, but never a woman. And to him, Alexis was perfect for propaganda. A female ranger medic? To Hassan, she was nothing but proof that America's military was weak. He told his men, laughing, "One American soldier won't last a week here, especially not a woman who thinks she can fight like a man." The guards chuckled. They thought it was over. But Alexis wasn't like any soldier they had captured before. For the first 3 days, she stayed silent. She ate little, slept little. Her captors thought she was in shock. They thought the fear had finally set in. But inside her mind, she was working, observing, studying, every guard, every movement, every sound. She was mapping the compound without ever leaving her cell. When a guard brought food, she memorized. His walk, his grip on the keys, the way he carried his weapon. When inspections were done, she noted the timing, the shift changes, the security routines. Even the smell of the air told her where fires burned, where food was cooked, where fuel was stored. Her Cherokee skills came alive. She pressed her ear to the cold walls, hearing footsteps through vibrations. She studied the shadows, learning where torches flickered and where patrols crossed paths. Even in darkness, she was collecting information, one detail at a time. Her medical knowledge became another weapon. She knew the human body better than most doctors. She knew how to strike nerves without sound, how to render a man unconscious in seconds, how to use pressure points to silence screams before they began. To the guards, she was a prisoner. To Alexis, they were prey, wandering too close to the cage. On the 4th night, she made her first move. Her target was Mahmoud, a young guard, cocky, careless, and always breaking rules. He entered her cell for a routine inspection, never realizing he was walking into a trap. Alexis moved fast, precise. One strike to the neck, he couldn't scream. One twist, his body went limp. Before he even knew what had happened, she had him bound with his own gear. But she didn't kill him immediately. She hid his unconscious body in the shadows of her cell. She stripped him of his keys, his knife, his radio. And then, she slipped into the darkness of the compound. For the first time since her capture, she was free to move. But she didn't run. She didn't try to escape. No. Alexis had a different plan. She wasn't going to just survive. She was going to hunt. The first disappearance spread unease. Guards whispered to each other. One of their own was missing. Maybe he had deserted. Maybe he had fallen asleep. But Alexis knew fear was her greatest weapon. Her grandfather had taught her, fear breaks armies faster than bullets. So instead of showing herself, she stayed invisible. She moved through shadows, watching, waiting, letting paranoia take root. On the 5th night, she struck again. This time the communications specialist, the man who controlled Hassan's radios, who sent messages to other cells. Using stealth her grandmother had taught her, she moved silently, blending into darkness. The specialist never even heard her approach. One silent takedown, and the bunker was hers. From his equipment, she gained more than just a weapon. She gained information, maps, locations of other cells, planned attacks, supply lines. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. By the 7th day, the compound was no longer a prison. It was a hunting ground. Half the guards had vanished. The others jumped at every sound, every flicker of movement. Some swore they heard footsteps behind them, but saw nothing. Others claimed equipment was moved when no one was near. A few whispered about a ghost. But Alexis wasn't a ghost. She was the Reaper, and she was just getting started. By the 7th day, the compound was in chaos. What had once been a fortress now felt like a haunted graveyard. Hassan's men whispered in the dark, their eyes darting at shadows. Weapons clutched tighter, voices low. No one wanted to patrol alone. But Alexis wasn't just hiding. She was controlling their fear. She had turned the maintenance tunnels beneath the compound into her base, damp, narrow passages that most guards never entered. But to her, they were perfect. From down there, she could hear everything. Boots, stomping, weapons clinking, men whispering about ghosts. She could slip out through vents, strike, and vanish before anyone even realized she was near. She was everywhere and nowhere. Her grandfather's words rang in her mind. Survival isn't about strength. It's about making the enemy believe you're stronger than they are. Every time she eliminated a guard, she left behind small signs. A weapon missing. A torch knocked over. A pool of blood with no body. To her enemies, it was proof of something unnatural. To Alexis, it was psychology, breaking them before she even faced them. The second week began with silence. No laughter. No confidence. Only fear. Hassan stormed through the compound, shouting, "Find the American woman! She is only one soldier! One! Do not tell me she has vanished!" But his men avoided his eyes. They didn't want to admit the truth. They had. No idea where she was, no idea how she was moving, and no idea how many more would vanish before morning. That night, Alexis prepared her next strike. Her target, the perimeter guards. These were the men who stood watch at the outer edges of the compound, the first line of defense. But they were also tired, paranoid, and careless after days of sleepless fear. Alexis watched them from the shadows for hours. 2 men, poorly disciplined, distracted. One smoked while the other leaned against a wall, muttering curses into the night. She moved like the wind, silent, invisible. Within seconds, both were gone. One silenced by a chokehold, the other by a swift blade to the throat. No sound, no warning. When the next patrol arrived, the posts were empty. The guards whispered louder now. Some believed she was a demon. Others thought she had outside help. But none of them believed it was just one woman. By now, Alexis had something far more valuable than weapons: information. From the communications bunker, she had gathered maps and files, and in them, she discovered Hassan's secret plan, a coordinated attack. Multiple terrorist cells were preparing to strike a forward operating base, an American stronghold in the mountains. If the attack succeeded, hundreds of U.S. soldiers would die. That's when Alexis made a decision. She could have escaped. She could have slipped away into the night, leaving the compound in ruins. But escape wasn't enough. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about duty. If she left Hassan alive, more Americans would die. If she ran now, his network would continue. She wasn't going to run. She was going to finish this. On the 8th night, Alexis began her final campaign. She crafted weapons from scraps, improvised explosives from medical supplies, traps from broken equipment, and blades from steel fragments. Every tool became a weapon. Every shadow became cover. She struck in multiple places at once. The weapons cache exploded in fire, lighting up the night sky. The communications center collapsed under her sabotage, and the guards, already broken with fear, scattered like hunted animals. Hassan's fortress wasn't a prison anymore. It was a battlefield, and Alexis owned every inch of it. The commander himself began to feel the weight of fear. His once loyal men now questioned him. Some even fled into the mountains rather than face the Reaper. Desperate, Hassan prepared his emergency escape. But Alexis was already waiting. Smoke still rose from the shattered bunkers. The once impenetrable fortress was crumbling. Hassan's army of 40 had been reduced to frightened shadows, fleeing into the mountains. And at the heart of it all was one woman, one medic, turning captivity into carnage. Hassan could feel it now, the fear, the silence. Every echo inside the tunnels felt like footsteps behind him. Every gust of wind sounded like her breathing. He had captured a soldier, but unleashed a predator. Inside the chaos, Alexis waited. She knew Hassan would try to escape. Men like him always did. Cowards never died with their army. They ran to save themselves. She tracked his movements easily, every corridor, every door. She had studied this compound like a second skin. And when Hassan finally rushed toward the emergency communications bunker, Alexis was already there. The door swung open, and there she stood, her uniform torn, her face streaked with dirt and blood, but her eyes, those green eyes, were calm, cold, unshaken. Hassan froze. For the first time in years, fear entered his eyes. "You," he spat. "You should have been broken by now. You should have begged me for mercy." Alexis stepped forward, silent, steady. Then she spoke, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "You were right about one thing, Hassan. One American soldier couldn't last a week here." She paused, letting the words sink in, her breath steady, her hand gripping the weapon she had taken from his own men. "But I'm not just any soldier. I'm a ranger, a medic, a reaper." Her voice grew harder, filled with steel. "I don't just survive. I adapt. I overcome, and I eliminate threats to my brothers and sisters in arms." The final fight was swift. Hassan, desperate, drew his weapon. But Alexis was faster. All her training, Cherokee stealth, Green Beret cunning, Ranger precision, came together in that one instant. A strike. A shot. And Hassan, the man who had built an empire of fear, fell to the floor, silenced by the very soldier he thought would break. The compound burned for hours. Explosions lit up the night sky. And when the smoke cleared, only one figure remained. 3 days later, when the rescue helicopter finally arrived at the coordinates of Hassan's fortress, the pilots could hardly believe what they saw. No army, no captured prisoners, just one woman, standing tall amid the ruins, clutching a bundle of files and maps, the intelligence of an entire terrorist network. The pilot's voice cracked as he radioed command. "We came to rescue one captured medic. Instead, we found a soldier who eliminated an entire enemy compound." Back at A base, officers struggled to understand how it had happened. Major Reynolds, who led her debrief, shook his head in disbelief. "Sergeant Morgan," he said quietly, "what you accomplished in 8 days is unprecedented. You didn't just escape. You dismantled a network. You saved hundreds of lives." But Alexis only gave a simple answer. "Sir, I did what any ranger would do. I adapted. I used what I had. And I refused to break." 6 months later, she was promoted to Sergeant First Class. Her story became a case study in special operations schools across the world. But for Alexis, the true victory wasn't the promotion. It was the silence. No one, ever again, questioned whether a female soldier could handle the most dangerous missions. Her week in captivity had answered that once and for all. Today, Master Sergeant Alexis Reaper Morgan trains Special Forces soldiers in survival. Her methods? A blend of modern military doctrine, Cherokee wisdom, and Green Beret philosophy. She tells her students the same lesson she lived. True strength isn't avoiding capture. It's turning captivity into opportunity. It's proving that even when you're caged, you can still be the predator. And her story leaves us with one final truth. Sometimes the enemy's greatest mistake is underestimating the one they've captured. Because some warriors don't break when caged, they become even more dangerous. They become legends.